Welcome back, all our 40K fanatics out there. I'm DJ.
And I'm Lane.
And we are here to give you our post-tournament report, talking about the recent event that we went to at Battlegrounds and Board Games, where both Lane and myself took our list. Lane taking Blood Angels, me taking Grey Knights, and fought it out for the weekend at that event. Shout out to all the guys at Battlegrounds and Board Games and our teammates at Battlegrounds and Board Games. Huge support, great store. As Lane's mentioned, great environment, very comfortable, and thank you, Ed, for giving us our brand new objective markers. Look at those beautiful things. Nice.
Shiny.
Love them. Love them. You get to see these in our next battle report with World Eaters and Blood Angels. But before we get into that, we want to give you guys a recap from this weekend since we were both at this event. First things first, though, Lane, as I said, Battlegrounds and Board Games, great store. You articulate it better. Give us a little talk about Battlegrounds and Board Games a little bit.
Well, when I go to a tournament, for me, it's kind of like a mini vacation. Like, I don't go on big vacations. These are kind of like little vacations. So the fact that I'm comfortable there is a big deal for me. So Battlegrounds and Board Games has plenty of space. It's not loud in there. They've got carpet. They've got some flags on the walls and things that kind of tamp down the noise.
I love those flags. I want to get a couple. I would love to get a couple of those ones. A real nice, like they're army faction specific. They're like this big and they're cloth. Oh, they look good.
Yeah, they look great, but they also absorb the sound some. I've been in many places where I've played tournaments where you basically have to shout the whole time because it's just so loud. So it's got a good environment. It's not too loud. Plenty of space. You're not bumping into people all the time. Plenty of space around the tables. The terrain is excellent in that it's always themed. You know, they paint the terrain to match the mat that it's on. So if you've got a snowy mat, you've got snowy terrain. It's great. And they always run a great event there. Plenty of prize support. A real positive environment.
They emphasize painting too.
Yeah.
More on that later.
Yeah. So, it's always a great time there, and they're pretty consistent with having one every month. So if you can get out to Battlegrounds and Board Games, definitely do it.
That is in the Akron, Canton area.
Right.
All right. So Lane and I went there. The list I took. Well, first, Lane, you didn't take the list you played last time. What did you take?
Yeah, I took a Blood Angels list that I was just trying to have many units that did not need Oath of Moment. So I was trying to make it very efficient. So I had the 6 Sanguinary Guard with Dante, so that they were hitting on 2s, didn't need Oath of Moment. I had 6 Blade Guard vets with a Lieutenant, but they get the reroll 1s in combat, so they didn't need it. I got, I had 2 Gladiator Reapers this time, just because I was worried about certain combat armies that have things like Fight First and Fight on Death. I wanted to be able to deal with some other infantry, so I had a couple of those. And, what else did I have? Had an Impulsor, of course, had the Smash Captain with the Ragefield Warrior enhancement, so that he was running out there punching guys. He was a 5-man Assault Intercessor squad. And then I had a 10-man Jump Intercessors with with a Chaplain. I think Scout Squad, squad of Infiltrators, and that's about it.
We'll get these lists in the comment section too, so you guys can see them a bit. We'll put them in the comment section, not the detail of the video, so that you can see them separately. Mine was the almost identical Grey Knight list that I took before, except for the fact that after having a discussion with someone in the comment section, kind of led me in a direction, because I wasn't feeling too comfortable with the Librarian. Like we talked about before, the spectrum of terrible to amazing is just so wide. I didn't like that. I wasn't comfortable with that. I'm okay with something going, okay, if it does this, but I'm not paying that many points for it, okay, that's one thing. But for him, I really did not like the fact that it was just so swingy on if he was going to do anything or nothing, or just be a unit to do secondaries with, in which case it's like, well, then why not just take a squad of Interceptors, which can shoot and hide and move around and how fast they are. So after discussing with someone in the comment section and then talking about it with Lane as well and bouncing it back and forth, the day before the tournament, because we could submit the lists the day before, I made a switch, which I highly, highly recommend not doing.
Always change your list last minute.
Never change your list last minute, but I did, but it was a small change where I dropped the Librarian. I had 10 points extra, so I dropped the Librarian and switched it over to Mr. Lord Calidor Drago. He can still do his 3-inch +3 charge out of Deep Strike, so he was just a missile that was able to hit. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, it was the most amazing change, but it did help out where things like engage on all fronts, where I might not have been able to fully get into an area. Otherwise, I would have had to spend a command point to drop within 3 inches. Didn't really want to spend the resources on it. Drago was able to do that, where he was able to then get +3 on the charge, complete a charge, hit something that's wimpy that I really didn't need to destroy, but score those points for engage, behind enemy lines, and things like that. So that was a very useful utility with him for the 125 points. So that was well and was a good switch at the last minute. So, all right, but getting into our games, Lane, let's talk about round one. Tell us about your round one first.
Well, I prepped this list I had for dealing with other infantry, and I didn't really get any in game one. Game one played against Luke and his Tyranids. We, in our discussion, figured out that I had been playing Warhammer for longer than Luke has been alive. That was a fun conversation to have. It made me feel nice and old. But he was bringing Tyranids, a bunch of monsters. He had the 800-point Forge World Hierophant, I think it is. Hierophant, big old critter, 800 and some points. Gigantic. It takes up so much space. We were playing table quarters, search and destroy, barely fitted into his deployment zone. So he had that, and then a Norn Emissary, I think like 2 squads of Termagants, those was only infantry, and then it was just all a bunch of monsters and stuff. Some Zoanthropes, the Psychophage, another big critter. I don't remember all the different critters that they have. Obviously, almost half of his list was this giant
how many points
Biotitan, 800 something.
It's 800 points for it?
Yeah, probably almost 900. I think it was 880 maybe.
So, things got guns, though. Things got real nasty guns.
Yeah, his shooting output is he's got 2 guns. Each one is D6 +6, strength 10, AP2, I think 3 damage. Just a ton of high strength, high damage attacks. He also has a 3d6 flamer if you get within 12 inches of him. And his close combat profile is ridiculous. I don't remember how many attacks he had, but they're strength 20. It was a ton of attacks, or not, but a ton of strength there. So anyways, yeah, when you're dealing with something that has this giant centerpiece model, when you're playing against it competitively, you got to make a decision early on about whether you try to deal with that and kill that thing or try and deal with everything else. And I just decided to deal with everything else. So chewed through everything pretty quickly. The Biotitan couldn't really move very much because of the terrain. He was kind of parked behind an L of terrain and couldn't really move over it. He can move over stuff that's 4 inches tall, but everything is tall. And he basically could touch into it and shoot out of it. So he's shooting, but not really moving around the table on it.
Yeah, let us know in the comment section. I thought there was something that Tyranids got where the Titanic Tyranid models could do what Imperial Knights could and go through. After the game I was looking for it, and I couldn't find it, so maybe I was wrong. I thought the Titanic Tyranids could do what Imperial Knights could by taking a battle shock and moving through that stuff. But
yeah, I don't know if that applies. Anyways, it was fun. He was a great opponent. We had a great time and a blast playing him. Some interesting things happened. Basically, my strategy around that Hierophant was to not try to attack him at all. I didn't shoot him at all and didn't even throw a punch at him at any point during the game. I knew that his big gun, while he has a ton of attacks and high strength and flat 3 damage, it was AP2. So I just made sure I positioned all my units so they were getting cover. And if he decided to shoot at something, I could armor contempt it. So I was just getting my regular armor saves. So so I reduced his efficiency with that pretty significantly. And I just pushed into it and just swarmed through and killed everything out on the table. The Norn Emissary took a lot of my army, but I picked it up in 1 turn, but he was on his objective. They gave him a 5-up feel no pain in addition to his other, his 4-up invuln and all this stuff. So I had to just keep pushing into him because they kept pulling kill secondaries and I was killing everything on the board. So I did push into his deployment zone, especially in the last couple turns. I pulled things like no prisoners and I pulled bring it down. So I pushed in and had to kill critters in there. Basically, at 3 separate times throughout the game, I pushed in with units. The units died. The character lived. And then he charged my character with the Hierophant. So 3 times in this game, his Hierophant charged a character, just a lone character, and killed him. And that's how I finished off. We'll maybe throw some pictures up here. I have a picture. I took a picture every time. It's like, here's my captain standing at the foot of the Hierophant, ready to be bashed by these giants. So it was hilarious. And the fact that it happened 3 times, if I had a nickel for every time one of my characters got charged by a Biotitan, I would have 3 nickels, which is not a lot.
Cents, but it's
weird that it happened 3 times. So Yeah, so that was a great game. Just because I just pushed them off primaries, it was 95 to 45. So a pretty strong win, but we had a blast. So it was great playing against Luke and meeting him. So how about your first game?
So round one for me, I played against Jeffrey, and much like Lane, I also played against Tyranids. No Bio Titan here, but we do still have a bunch of big bugs. A big trend over the course of my game is going to be that the Purifiers were the MVP. Second honorable mention would go to the Grandmaster Dread Knight. So people are wondering into those things of like Dread Knight can advance in charge and fall back in charge. Go with them. That Grandmaster, there's a lot of utility around the Grandmaster Dread Knight, especially with the Sigil. Because the Sigil almost acts kind of at a rapid ingress. Because once you get shot, you pick them up and you put them down somewhere where you're like, okay, well, next turn I get to move 8 and then I can charge. And he, especially with that ability to reroll hits, wounds, and damage into monsters and vehicles, that comes in handy. And that was a big part of it because he had the Norn Emissary as well. I was able to drop all my Dread Knights down. I had Bring It Down. And I said, well, I'm going to throw the kitchen sink at him and try and take him down. I was able to get him into position, shot at him. The shooting did nothing, just bounced off the thing. Mm-hmm. And then I charged in and put 5 wounds onto it. Literally 5 wounds. He failed all the saves. And then I'm like, okay, well, I got 5d6 plus 1 damage, plus I reroll the fail. So he just picked him up. I don't even know. We don't even know how much damage was there. He just picked him up.
A lot.
He's like, yeah, we're good here. And just picked him up. So he went down. He went down quickly, which was able to, that was one of the big things for me to be able to break that side. Also, it got me to a point because we're doing Scorched Earth. Now I was able to burn the side objectives very easily. I was able to burn them on both sides. My Terminators got the one on the right side where I was able to drop in, just start gunning down Lictors and Gene Stealers and slowly move up onto that. Burnt that objective off the field. Went to the other side of the map with the Strike Squad, burnt them off the field. Purifiers land, they just annihilated Termagants. 10-man squad of Termagants into 4 Incinerators, a 10-man Purifier. I would hope they can pick that up, especially when they had no cover or nothing, even though I ignore cover. And then the Purifiers got hit because he did not like them, so he beat them up. And it was the first time that I actually remembered the fact that when the Purifiers are dropped below half strength, they then get +1 to wound. And that was very critical because he had Zoanthrope. I moved up into the Zoanthrope, and I was able to use, since they're infantry at that time, I was able to do a ton of damage and rip most of them off the table. And then into the next turn, the ones that were left, now I had +1 to wound, ripped them off the table, charged the Hive Tyrant, +1 to wound, was able to take him down. And now these Purifiers that were at half strength were they just started rolling through everything. It did get to a point where, unfortunately, I did make it into Jeffrey's deployment zone, and I burnt his home field objective marker. So that was an extra bonus 10 points onto the mission, which actually gave me 55 on primary, but that was the easiest one to burn because I needed to hold this. Was fighting over the center one for most of the game. That was final score on that one was 92 to 56. So it was a pretty solid win. Pretty solid win going in there for the Grey Knights. Again, the biggest thing was, like everything else, I kind of played KG, stayed back, got onto points, and just started to move through slowly and do damage. Exocrines and the Tyrannifex are menaces in shooting. They're so strong. And they were able to pick up most of my Dread Knights. At the end, the only one that remained was the Grandmaster Dread Knight, who just was whooping and walloping. He came in there, he took out the Norn Emissary, he took out an Exocrine, he took out a Tyrannifex, and he was going back and ready to take out another one until it went down to shooting. So he was picking up monsters and bringing them home for dinner. So that was game 2, or game 1. And now we'll move over to game 2, where I went against Turner and the Night Lords, which I was a little concerned going into because I was like, okay, Night Lords, I don't know exactly what we're doing here.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Yeah, and there was a ton of one thing I will say, honorable mention from the first game I brought, I was a very courteous player in the first game turn. My opponent drew Mark for Death, and I told him, I was like, okay, so under your turn, do you want to discard Mark for Death for a CP? He's like, yes. I was like, are you sure? And I stopped for a second, and he's like, what, don't I want to? I was like, read the card. And he gave him a second. That was as far as I was going to go, but I was very courteous about it to go, wait a minute, because with Grey Knights, to throw out there, you can put your opponent, it says if the model leaves the table at any ways. It literally on the card says by any ways leaves the table. So
It's not really marked for death. It's like marked for absence.
yeah,
Like,
marked for absence.
if they're not there anymore, even if they're not dead, it still counts as they get still your 5 points.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, so if the Grey Knight player, they might be able to pick 3 units that they're not going to pick up. But most scenarios, it's really tough to do, especially with such an elite army.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to end up putting it in a position where they go, okay, well, I either A, leave this thing on the field, or B, I give you 5 points. I told him, yep. He's like, I'm going to hold on to it. I'm like, okay, cool. And you're going to score 5 points because I have to pick up my units because we got to start moving through the game. So I was courteous about that to him and let him know, because I think it's a little thing that not a lot of people check because it happens so rarely.
Mm-hmm.
Hypercrypt is another one you can do it to kind of lock people out, to make sure it's like, okay, well, do you want to give me 5 points on secondaries? And honestly, that's one of the, especially with an elite army like that, it's just like, well, yeah, you're going to get 5 on secondary, especially in turn 1 of the game. So now back over to Night Lords. So Night Lords, he had a bunch. He had 3 squads of Havocs, 2 Predator Destructors, 2 Predator Annihilators, 3 5-man Raptors, a 5-man Warp Talon, 10 Warp Talons. There was no Rhino. I'm thinking, was there around? No, there was no Rhino.
It's a lot.
There was a lot. And then there was one of their Chaos Lords that was leading one of the Raptor squads, and he had an ability, so he was on the board because of his ability. But yeah, it was a lot of shooting. Oh, and there was a Dreadnought. All the Havocs had las cannons, a lot of shooting and stuff like that. So I'm like, all right, well, they're not going to be able to do much with these vehicles because I don't have any way to really deal with them until I get up and punch them with a hammer.
Mm-hmm.
But I was able to, my secondaries came through pretty decent on my side of the field. First 2 turns, I only had to I think I just pitched out for command points, and I was able to put the Terminators back and keep them on my objective. So I was able to terraform the objective that was closest to me just outside of my deployment zone. I was able to terraform that on the early on.
Mm-hmm.
I also moved the Grand Master to the center, so I was terraforming both of those. So I had to make him kind of make a choice. He shot at the Dreadnought. I picked him up and got him out of there. And then once he moved into position, he shot at my Terminators with a bunch of las cannons. I was in cover with True Silver Armor, so I had a 3-up save. At the end of it all, I only lost 1 Terminator from the 2 Havoc squads. So that was really nice for me. And then, again, this is where the big point is, the Purifiers. Purifiers came down, ace the squad of Havocs. He moves. Missed the Deimos, the Purifiers away. At the end of my turn, he had rapid ingress the 10-man Warp Talons right by my 5-man Strike and the Brotherhood Champion. So they were in there, they were able to move up, and they were inches away from being able to charge the squad when it came to that point. So then I picked up those guys in the Deimos, I spent a command point, and rapid ingressed them right back down within 9, or outside of 9, but within 12 of that squad. So as soon as he declared that charge, my Purifiers would get that Overwatch. In my mind, that was going to be a great play. That was going to be a huge play. I was going to beat that squad up, and then I go to roll the dice. I roll the Flamers. I roll 1, 1, 1, 3.
That's average. That's average.
Yeah. So the Flamers, so at the end of it all, after all the Overwatch, I killed 1.5 guys. I'm like, oh, well, that didn't work. So then
I've had worse Overwatch.
Yeah. So then he charges, the Strike and the Brotherhood Champion. And the Brotherhood Champion has to fight first, and the Strike and the Brotherhood Champion turn around and cleave 8 of the 9 remaining Raptors by themselves. 2 damage weapons, AP2, and the Brotherhood Champions, they just ate through all that whole squad, leaving just 1 guy left alive. So even though the Overwatch didn't go well, the Brotherhood Champion said, here, hold my drink, hold my adult beverage, and went to work. But then the Purifiers continued for the rest of the game just to clean up infantry. They just jumped all over the field. I'd pick them up, put them down, clean up. Started split firing at one point to just clean guys up off the field because of how much infantry he had and how fast it was and how critical it was for his game plan. Because his jump infantry is able to hide behind terrain per se and then move out there, he doesn't really have to worry about someone getting to him. There's not a lot of artillery threats, but with a squad like the Purifiers that I can land within 3 inches, they turn into an artillery threat, which significantly hurt his army massively. I was only able to pick up 1, I think I picked up 2 of the tanks that he had. But the other ones, I just kept them tied up and out of the way. But final score was 90 to 36. So it was a pretty brutal game because of the Purifiers. Purifiers were huge MVP. I think at the end of the game, when we tallied it up, they destroyed like 1,100 points worth of models themselves. Because again, we don't plan for artillery right now because there really isn't any good artillery. So we can put a 5-man on an objective or put small, weak units and let them hide. That, I mean, I'm not saying that Warp Talons or Raptors are weak, but they're units that they don't want to get shot at. They want to hit you and then you can destroy them, but they need to at least get that one punch in there where the Purifiers kind of take that aspect out of it. So that was that. That was round 2, going 2-0 right now. Lane, talk to us. What'd you do?
Round 2, I played against Brian, one of our teammates on the Battlegrounds Brawlers store team there, and he was playing Imperial Knights. So yeah, I was prepared to go against infantry, and I had to play against Imperial Knights. He had 3 big knights. He had Canis Rex, he had the Lancer, and he had another Forge World one. I forget the name of it, but it's the one that has 2 big guns, and then also fights really well too, despite the fact that his
I think it begins with a P, like Preceptor or something like that.
Maybe something like that. Yeah, I don't remember.
Proteus.
I don't know.
Okay. Yeah.
But and then he had 2 Armiger Warglaves and Armiger Helvrin. He had an Assassin, an Eversor, and then he had the Navigator for the Deep Strike Deny. Yeah, I didn't have to worry about being able to put damage on vehicles, even though the Blood Angels, you know, their close combat is not as high strength. As you know, there's nothing strength 12 in this army. But despite the fact that everything he had was T12 with all those big knights with all 25 wounds, he did pick up. So I went after Canis Rex in the middle of the table because he moved Canis Rex up to the middle. Went after him, killed him, but then he could fight on death and could precision when he fought. And so he picked up my Warlord early on, which was Dante, because he precisioned him out of the squad of Sanguinary Guard. And that gave him a 5-up Feel No Pain. So picking up all the other knights after that one, I was still picking them up even though I had a 5-up Feel No Pain on his army. Yeah, that we're still able to chew through and kill all the big knights. The only thing he had left
impressive.
at the end, the only thing he had left at the game was the Navigator and 1 Armiger Helvrin. I think that was it. I was able to wreck everything else. He did try a secret mission at the end because his big knight, the one that we can't remember the name of, he was his Warlord and he had the uppy downy stratagem on him. So he was able to uppy downy and put it on my home field objective because I kind of abandoned it. So basically I had to kill this giant knight in order to prevent him from doing it. And we're still able to do it, even though I didn't have that many units, near the end of the game. It did take me 2 turns. But the Blood Angels, just when you take advantage of things like the lethal hits that Lamarty's gives, and then your Lance Strat, and then just re-rolling, and everything getting the extra strength. Like the Blade Guard charge into them, roll real hot, and just did a ton of wounds. They're at strength 7 and give them Lance. They get lethals from the lieutenant, so they were just doing a lot more damage than you expect into something that's a big giant monster robot. So it was a great game with Brian. It was pretty close there until the end, but because I shut off his ability to do that secret mission, I did win by about 30 points. So a strong win there. Didn't have to worry about the fact that those Gladiator Reapers weren't really doing anything in this game. They take off a couple dev wounds here and there, but the rest of the Blood Angels are able to pick up the Knights pretty well. So pretty happy with that. So game 2 is a win for me. DJ, game 3?
Let's go. Let's do your game 3
okay.
first.
So game 3, I played against Nathan.
Now at this point, Lane and I are both in the top seeds. There's a chance that we could go first and second place. Start us off, Lane.
So third game, I had to play against Nathan, or I got to play against Nathan. It was a privilege and an honor to play against Nathan. Nathan is, again, one of our teammates at Battlegrounds, to board games on the store team, Battlegrounds Brawlers. He's playing Tau, Retaliation Cadre. I didn't have much experience into this. Man, the Tau just get a lot of good rules and a lot of units. I don't think their rules are overpowered. It just felt like they had way too many units, and every unit feels like it has too many guns. So the one thing I kind of figured out that I didn't really like about the Blood Angels I was running is that they're kind of expensive, and if you take too many big units, like Dante and his Sanguinary Guard, that's 400 points. That's a big chunk of your army, and some other armies just are able to trade better. So I was killing well and trading well, but it just wasn't enough because he had so many units. You know, 2-man of broadsides is 180 points, and they just drop in and pick something up. So early in the game, I had a fun interaction where I had there was the Ghost Keel battlesuit and Sky Ray sitting next to each other. I had no prisoners, just trying to kill as many things as I can that turn. I oathed the Sky Ray. Did a few damage here and there in shooting. Gladiator Reaper put 3 or 4 wounds onto it. Got in, multi-charged both the Ghost Keel and the Sky Ray with the jump intercessors. And so they did their mortal wounds on impact, got them down to 2 wounds, and they were led by the chaplain. And so when the chaplain's unit activates, I do mortal wounds there. He rolled a d6 on a 4-up. He does d3 mortal wounds. So he picked up the Sky Ray, finished him off with the mortal wounds, and that allowed me to pile everything in to the Ghost Keel. Wasn't able to pick it up, but it was nice that just the mortal impact wounds from both the chaplain and the jump intercessors allowed me to finish that tank off and then pile in the other thing and just put more attacks into him. So again, it went pretty well. Man, the Flamer ones are brutal when they're led by the Flamer Crisis suits are brutal when led by a character that gives them an extra AP. Their Flamers get up to AP 2, Strength 5, and +1 to wound because of the character. So, fired Overwatch on my...
Mountain vehicles there.
Yeah, I mean, those are just the Flamers, again, but into infantry, they picked up 4 of my Sanguinary Guard on the Overwatch. It was just brutal. So, I had a great time, real good game. I don't remember what the score was. Nathan definitely beat me, basically tabled me by round 4. So I think I scored all right for being tabled, the 50-something, but he definitely pulled off the win. So congrats to Nathan. Good game, sir. Tower real strong. All right, DJ, your last game.
All right, so my last game, we have me facing off against friend of the channel, Zach. And Zach is playing his Black Templars. And with Zach's Black Templars, one thing to know is he has a giant, basically indestructible brick. You'll have to help me on this because
honestly, it's 20 Crusaders. You can give them a 5-up, feel no pain. So it's just 20 Space Marines that have a 5-up, feel no pain.
There's like 5 scouts in there or something like that. And then the characters that he attaches to him give him a 5-up, feel no pain. I didn't remember the unit much because I literally looked at the thing and I'm not going to destroy this. So I'm just not going to touch it.
Yeah, 40 wounds with a 5-up, feel no pain, and access to armor contempt is ridiculous.
Yeah, it had he had my left, his right side of the table where he moved them up on the objective, and he moved them onto the objective. And I said, you know what? I think you want that, so it's yours. You may have that. So I took the battle to the right side of the field where I was able to pick everything up, bring everything down over there, put a lot of shots into there, and just start to try to remove things. One thing that I didn't like was his vow that he took was the anti-psyker vow. So he was able...
did you have psychers in your army?
Just a few. Just 1, 2, all of them. So anytime I hit him with a psychic weapon, he had a 4-up invuln. So in AP2 under the 3-up, he still was sitting on a 4-up invuln on everything. And in combat, he had anti-psyker 4-up. So heaven forbid his weapons had devastating wounds, because that hurt, especially on his Judicar. And it also just hurt on regular, what are they called? Sword Brethren?
Sword Brethren, yep.
The Sword Brethren, that it was just literally every time he rolled dice and I tried to make saves and just flat 4 damage or flat 3 damage or something.
They get the option in the fight phase of going +1 damage. So all their 2 stuff goes to 3.
That's
usually. Okay. There's another option. I think it's extra attack, but the extra damage is just usually.
Yeah, and it was
most of them are flat 3 damage.
And it was just every time I looked at them or every time they touched anything, it just exploded. It would just, I couldn't even I could not handle anything in combat with him, really, except for the assault intercessors and scout squads. But as far as those guys, it just, you touch them and things just die. So that was one thing I was trying to avoid. So I was trying to stay to the outside with it. Picked up, came around that side. I was able to get into his home objective. One thing that was hilarious, because we both forgot, I had engaged on all fronts, so I brought the interceptors in, and I brought them in right in front of him, right against the wall of his table, and put them down there and just left them there. So then he did his turn. He forgot they were there. I started doing my movement phase, and I walked over there. I'm like, oh, I got 5 dudes here. I forgot about them. So
everybody forgot about
So
them.
yeah, they were in such a stealthy position. Even I forgot about them. But because of that, I was able to move him towards his objective, shoot, and then start to harass his home field objective, which meant that he had to then turn resources around to come back there and fight. And that involved his assault intercessors, which he had 2 5-mans. And for the most part, I think I removed both of them. I removed one of the squads. The other one might have gotten away. The scouts, I was able to start removing some of those assets because he was throwing them back there. They got in there, and then Drago also came in there to do some whooping and a walloping. And then on the last turn of the game, I spent a command point to drop my strike marines within 3 inches right there on the objective. So I held that to really, I think I had behind enemy lines, and I had 2 units back there already. So it was just like extra incentive on this to keep these things scoring and keep moving these points and keep moving that needle. And then towards the end, I wanted to, and I thought I lost the game on this one because that's when I charged my Terminators. I had them holding my home field objective for most of it. I moved them up and I went to center just to slow him down. I knew he was going to shred the Terminators, but I wanted to prevent him from just fanning out and going into my zone. And then his secondaries, he had like, he dropping the Calidus in just right on my home field objective and sabotaging and stuff. And it was like, oh, wow, it was a huge point swing, and almost thought I was like, oh, wow, did I lose it by just charging to the Terminators? But fortunately, it was Purge the Foe. I did destroy 3 units in that turn to the 1 unit he took down, which was the Terminators, and pulled out a 92-89 finish. 3 points on the final table with first and second place, playing to win the whole thing. You'd love to see it. Thank you again for the game, Zach. It was menacing. It was a menacing close game. We both had very little left at the end. Even with how, like, he had 3 squads of Blade Guard. I took 2 of them out, but the one with the Judicar, I couldn't touch because of the fight first. I was able to, I think I got it down to 2 of the Sword Brethren and the Judicar just because it was the last turn, and I was like, well, I'm going to spend 2 command points and interrupt with these guys just before you slaughter the rest of my Terminators. And I think the last one got lucky and might have gotten through and picked 1 more up. But yeah, that was, I mean, he had his big brick that was still alive. And there was like those 3 guys in the middle and a couple stray assault intercessors. I had the strike. I did have all 10 of my purifiers because once again, they were seriously they were the MVPs because when other things would fail, they picked up in the Overwatch. They were picking up with their anti-infantry factor with the purifying flames, and they were just moving through and just shredding everything that was infantry. Even the Blade Guard were struggling to stay alive. There was a squad of Blade Guard that went from full strength to now just the characters alive from 1 round of fire from the purifiers. So they're still super good, super strong. I know I hear a lot of people saying we're heading towards a vehicle meta. I still don't see it. I see infantry.
That's all I ran into. I was ready for the infantry, and I just got all vehicles. Or monsters of the Tyranids, Imperial Knights, and then Tau was just all vehicles. I got to kill 1 squad of Kroot with one of my Reapers before they just died. So, yeah.
But yeah, and that game could have went either other way with just the flip of a card or the roll of a dice. Anything on that could have changed. Grandmaster again was pivotal because he did have the repulsor. Is it? What is the big floaty tank that has transport capacity?
Oh yeah, the repulsor.
Yep. He had that, and that did have a bunch of his 2 squads of the Blade Guard in it. Sword Brethren. Sorry, I get those mixed up all the time. And he moved that to the center, and so I did just send the Grandmaster on a kill mission in there with the reroll hits, wounds, and damage. I figured it was my one chance to take the thing out. The only chance I'd probably have because nothing else was going to make it through. I shot the thing with my guns, and he's like, well, 4-up invul. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's 4-up invul.
Right.
What am I going to do now? And I think like I put all 3 heavy psi cannons into it, and I think it was like 1 wound, and then another one had 1 wound, and that was it. Like I had 2 single shots I got through for like 6 damage, and that was all I was able to do. So that's where I was like, all right, Grandmaster's got to do it. He goes in there. He was able to hit it hard enough and just send the thing to oblivion. So in the end, Grey Knights take home first.
Got first place. Congratulations.
Thank you. Took home first with the Grey Knights. A little bit of rust. Drago was a good addition. He definitely helped for scoring a lot of points. I picked up some stuff for the World Eaters, so I was able to get a little more moving on that, which we're going to be seeing in our next battle report. And yeah, Lane, you also did. You didn't walk away with nothing.
Yeah, I came in 5th place. No prize support for that. They only pay out to 4th place, so I just missed that. But at Battlegrounds, they do 2 painting things. Basically, they have a raffle for everybody who is fully painted and based. So you have a chance to win something if your army's just painted. And then every time they do a tournament, they have you get to submit one of your models from your army, and they basically do best painted single model. I usually don't do really well in that. My armies are well painted as a whole, but I don't have like centerpiece models like people have, Bellicor or a giant Imperial Knight or all these things that are really well painted. I've just got dudes. But this time I gave them a Lamarty's to judge, and I did end up with best painted for my Lamarty's model. So it might be a couple pictures up here on the screen for him. But yeah, happy with that. Got a little something, got a little recognition for the paint.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, I know that a lot of people, I myself included, enjoy seeing a lot of your armies. And not to mention like the speed of how quick you get stuff done. Yes, you have, like you said, you have very well painted armies because your army looks everything looks the same. And like it doesn't, you can't see where like someone like myself, like if you look at some of my Grey Knights, they look great. But you can tell which ones are old and which ones I've painted more recently because
these ones are from a year ago. These are from 2 years ago.
You start to grow with how you paint, and you start learning new techniques and stuff like that.
Not me. I don't learn any new techniques.
No,
all the techniques
you got it
are
down.
the same.
You got it down. It's linear, but it is really nice to see that where it's like everything is consistent between it. But then you have stuff like your Lamartis, that's a beautiful looking model, and the shading, the shadowing on it, especially on his skull and his helm and everything.
The bone stuff turned out really well.
And the base too. And the base looks really good too. Like you can't discredit for how much a good base can really bring a model together.
Absolutely.
So, well, that's it from our weekend here. Again, congratulations. Thank you, Zach, for that game. Congratulations to everyone who participated and finished in that tournament. Thank you to, as well, all of our opponents that weekend. And yeah, we'll look forward to seeing what we're going to be doing again soon. We don't have anything on the spectrum because we're going to be getting into the holiday season here soon, which makes it very, very difficult sometimes to get tournaments set up. I know some TOs will try to put stuff together.
Battlegrounds is doing the next one on the 21st of December, pretty close to Christmas for a lot of people. I think I might try to go to it. We'll see what the plans are up there. But yeah. That's their next one. So
I know I definitely will not.
I imagine it's going to be lower. We had about 20 people at this one. Usually they've got about 30 people. I imagine we'll probably have 10 or 12 at that. But they still have one scheduled for the 21st. So
yeah, so it's just, we're getting into the holidays. We'll probably wait to start traveling. I know that in January we got the team event, which we're going to go back there and try and defend our title that we took last year at North Coast, see if we can do that again. And then start getting ready now with my twins getting a little bit older, start looking into the GT spring and summer season and get out there and do some whooping and a walloping.
I thought you were going to say start teaching them how to play. They're old enough now.
Yeah, the twins are old enough now. It's like, can you hold your head up? Okay, time to throw dice.
If they can drop a die, they can roll a die. So yeah, they can drop some dice.
Do you think that would work on like the cuteness factor? Like I just go, oh look, here I'm playing this army, but look, baby, and then like that.
No, because the games are 3 hours long. At some point, they're going to get cranky, and then that's not going to work to your advantage for the crank baby.
Yeah, that's true. That is going to fall. All right. Well, that's it, everybody. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you again soon.